Welcome to Coffee with Catholic Workers, a podcast made by and for Catholic workers. I'm Theo, and I am not joined today by my normal co-host Lydia. Regular listeners know we've been on a break for a few months, and while we hope to be back to our regular schedule soon, we've been super busy doing the works of mercy. In the meantime, our sound engineer Chris and I put together a few mini episodes made up of interviews I did with some of the European Catholic workers I got to visit this past summer. You can find out more about those houses and even see similar interviews with Catholic workers from my travels at catholicworkertheo.blogspot.com. Keep an eye out for new episodes of Coffee with Catholic Workers coming soon. And until then, enjoy this interview with Judith from Hamburg, Germany, Bread and Roses Catholic worker, on her Christian-oriented climate change activism. So do you want to tell me about the action you did a couple weekends ago and who you did it with and everything? Everything.
So when I came to Hamburg, I wanted to join a climate action group. And then Dietrich recommended me an activist friend, and he put me into contact with Christian Climate Action and Christians for Future. And he's an old activist. He's already in his 70s, but still very much in the blockading and everything. And through Christian Climate Action, which is the Christian branch, very small branch of Extinction Rebellion, we are about 15 people, I think, all together in Germany. So we are really, really small group. Someone in that group joined Last Generation. And Last Generation was looking for support from churches. They said, well, we need a strong voice from the churches right now in this situation. And Last Generation, should I explain a little bit what this group is? Yes. It's, I would say, the newest form of, or one of the newer forms of climate activist groups. And they do explicitly civil disobedience. That is their method. And basically, almost only. They changed a little bit their tactics in the last couple of months, but they want to disturb the current things of everyday life by mostly blockading streets, blocking streets. And they thought when they would do this, they came from Extinction Rebellion, from Christians for Future, but they felt all this activism for years and years hasn't brought any measurable political results. So to go to demonstrations, to write petitions, and to do all this activism within the legal frame, it didn't change a lot. And the climate catastrophe or the climate crisis is already globally noticeable. Of course, in different measures, we can still live quite well with it, but we notice it as well. And in other parts of the world, we know it's already causing lots of deaths and catastrophes, and the living conditions decline for many people in the global south. So they felt it's a matter of urgency to really force the public, to pressure politics to basically to adhere to their promises, and because Germany has a climate law and they don't adhere to it. Our government doesn't adhere to it. They wrote the Paris climate on the climate conference, the declaration. They said they obliged themselves to fulfill that, and they don't do it. So basically, what the group is saying, the government is breaking the law. They have all these laws and declarations, and they don't fulfill them. So we have to make them fulfill them for the sake of our survival. And it's mostly young generations who grew up already in a world that is quite affected by climate crisis, and they are worried for their future and for the future of humanity. So they felt now we take a little bit more extreme measures, but always in a non-violent way. We don't want to hurt any people, so that is really the strict code of conduct for them. Also in talking with the car drivers who get really upset because, as you know, Germany is a car country. People laugh. Sometimes they seem to have an emotional relation with their cars. If they are being blocked, it is one of the biggest provocations for Germans to make them stop driving their car. And one of the political demands, the last generation has 3 political demands. One is a speed limit. And it's simply, that's all over the world. Basically, I think it's very few countries which don't have it, and Germany is among them. And we have the Liberal Democrats in the government, and they are really strongly connected to the automobile industry. Their lobbyism is very strong. And there's no chance with them in the government, hardly a chance until now. We hope, of course, to pass a speed limit because they define it as freedom or liberty for citizens, and they see themselves as the defenders of freedom and liberty. So that is one of the demands. Another is a public transport ticket. We did have that last year. It was very successful. For €9 per month, you could take trains and buses all over Germany. So that was easily accessible in paper form. You didn't have to register anywhere. Anybody could buy it. And it made public transport affordable to everyone. Of course, it was a little bit chaotic because the train, they didn't communicate very well. It was a little bit abrupt, spontaneous decision by the government, and they didn't really communicate very well with the public transport responsibles, and they came under a lot of stress. But basically, the second demand is to continue some kind of at least cheap. Officially, it's still the €9 ticket. Now we have a €49 ticket, which you have to register for. You need a bank account, you need a name. And the Liberal Democrats want to make it accessible only in digital form, which excludes a lot of people, also homeless people and migrants and people who don't have papers for whatever reasons. So the criticism is it excludes too many people, and it's €49. It's almost €50 per month. That is still a lot of money. So we need a cheaper form. That's the second demand. And the third is we want more direct democracy. That would be installed by councils of citizens. So for certain issues, you would by not a lottery, but how do you say that? By coincidence, you would pick names, and you would pick people from different generations, from different professions, from different political sides, age, gender, mixed as well as you can. And they come together discussing, being informed by experts on the issue, and then discussing what would be the best solution. And then on the topic of how to deal with climate change, how to deal with climate crisis. So that is the third demand. Those are the main political demands. And for that reason, the members of last generation do these kind of acts of civil disobedience, hoping to win over a more broader public, because they of course are arrested by the police, and many had already penalties they had to pay. A lot of people already who don't have that money to pay or don't want to pay went to prison. And so to really make a big statement, that's part of the action, to go to prison, to go to police, and to say, we take that all into account because the matter is too serious, and to really increase, to make people aware that there's an immediate crisis. And I felt, yes, as a church, we should support that, and it's a matter of justice. And I love the encyclical Laudato Si by Pope Francis very much, where that the social justice is connected to the climate crisis or to the climate justice. So, and I mean, if you read the Bible, it's all about justice, fighting for justice, standing up for the suppressed. So I think it's in that terms it's a calling, and for all us as Christians to be very active and very clear and a loud voice in this struggle right now. So I joined as a member of the Catholic Worker Movement because we all had to be representatives of the church. We made public statements, video statements and written statements before the action. So the first action was a couple of months ago in Berlin, because it was it's a capital city with where the government sits. So that's, of course, one of the main centers. And that was the first church solidarity blockade. Everybody, I think, who was sitting in the blockade did that for the first time. It was very strange to us because lots of pastors or students who want to become pastors were taking part in this. We were quite mixed, gender-wise and age-wise, but we come from a church surrounding where you strive more or less for harmony. It's not, you don't want to disturb anyone, you don't want to annoy. So it was a big step and a big internal hindrance to purposely annoy people, because we know we do that. If we stop them and make them come late, probably in most cases it's not so worrisome, but it's an annoyance. It's an annoyance, and it happened in that time very regularly in Berlin. So we knew that, and but still we felt it's our duty to do this, and it was a really good experience because we felt solidarity. We felt it's right what we are doing. And I mean, the action was over within almost 5 minutes because the police was very alert, because there were so many things, and it was announced that that would be going on. And there was a demonstration in solidarity with Last Generation a couple of 100 meters away, and they knew probably there will be some blockade. So they were running over as soon as they heard the honking of the horns, which started almost immediately when we went over a green crossing light, a traffic light, and then we remained standing until people get out of their cars. And when they get out of their cars and move up to us, we sit down. Only when the police comes, then people who want to glue themselves, those who are on the margins, and the middle is always left free by people who only sit there, so that for the case of emergency, ambulances can pass by, so that there's always space for ambulances. Because that was one of the big reproaches in the beginning, or still sometimes today, that we would endanger people's lives by blocking ambulances. So after 5 minutes, police was there. Most of us were only sitting there. The police was so quick, they hid the glue that people were trying to put on their hands, out of their hands, before they could do it. So I think only 4 people managed to do the gluing thing. And the other ones we were very quickly put aside. And then we started singing. And we started singing church songs and different songs, because we were church people. We are used to singing. We did that for an hour. And I think that was our strongest impact that we made on people surrounding, because they knew a little bit the blockades, but it was new to them that there's people singing. And then the demonstration, the people came up for solidarity as well, and they were singing on the pavement as well. So there was a lot of singing going on, and that made the atmosphere, when you say, I trust in the Lord, and He is my savior, and I trust in the peace in front of the policemen. It really calms down the atmosphere. So that made it into an experience that was not frightening or horrifying to us who were doing it for the first time. So it was my second blockade. I had done a coal train blockade before in Amsterdam. But that was very well organized. I didn't have to do anything. It was easygoing. So, and then they said, well, it needs to go on. This is good to have it once, but there needs to be a continual support of the churches. And we would also like to come and support when there's in front of courts, when there's a testimony, or when you have to go to court, that you come in to support. They do a lot of spiritual care, spiritual guidance, counseling a little bit, because many of the activists are doing it already for a year, some for 2 years. And some feel like a little bit burnt out and they need the counseling. So that, I think, is another calling for church people to do it. And then we were thinking that we should do it again, and that would be the good occasion, Nuremberg, which is the place for the church assembly of the Protestant churches all over Germany. They do it every 2 years. And they had the climate topic was very big on their agenda already. But also, as a Solidarity Act, we went into the front of the central main station and did another blockade. And of course, there was police everywhere because they were expecting something to happen. And we never thought we would be able to glue ourselves, but somehow we managed. So we could sit there quite a while. And many people came up to us, supporting us. Some are very critical. You get lots of different voices. Again, we feel we need to continue now. We try to work into the churches and parishes around here and try to get solidarity for these kinds of actions. Even it would be nice if more people would sit down or do other kinds of civil disobedience or come up with ideas by themselves. But to support, I mean, you can do it in a lot of different ways. So that is our main work at the moment, right now.
So at that second blockade you were talking about, you actually were one of the hand gluers, right? What was that experience like for you?
I didn't, I had no experience with that before, so I just thought, well, I try and see how that works. I was a little nervous because I thought, will I manage within the time? But I did manage. And then it was really when I felt I was sticking to the street and the cars were stopping and people were very calm. It was very different to Berlin. In Berlin, many people were aggressive. And in Nuremberg, no honking, total silence. People stepped out and were quite calm. So that was a different setting. So it was not as frightening because I was thinking, I'm sitting here right in front of a car, and if somebody decided to, I could move out of the way. I'm a little bit, how to say that? Vulnerable. I cannot do an influence. I'm a little bit, at their mercy, so to say. But there was no threat. So that was, but I really felt, okay, I'm dependent on somebody to come and help me out here, which was the police then. And I think for us, the special situation is that there's a lot of media attention. So police is usually very careful in dealing with us. So they were very gentle with the soap and everything and a brush, not to hurt. They always asked, does it hurt? And they didn't. It took half an hour to get us off the streets. So, I cannot complain about any police violence, but it seems to be a difference if there's media present or not. So I haven't been in a situation yet that maybe will come then in the future where there haven't been media present, and that will be maybe a different experience.
Did they take you to jail or anything?
Yes. The people who only sat there, they would give their personal data, and then they could go, and they took us and they made photos and they took the fingerprints, they measured us, weighed us, made a painting of us, took pictures of the contents of our bags and everything. So it was quite an extensive procedure, I would say. The first time for me, I didn't know what it would entail altogether. but I knew that is part of the action. So, yeah.
You mentioned that the climate topic it was like on the agenda already for like the Christians. Do you ever talk to other Christians for whom like it's already like kind of a concern, who aren't part of your more radical action cohort? Like do they have thoughts about these more quote unquote extreme measures you all feel like taking?
Mostly it's within another Christian climate activist group, the Christians for Future, which are the Christian branch of the Fridays for Future movement. And they explicitly don't want to do any form of civil disobedience. So they want to do only legal forms of protest. So with them, we have discussions. They show solidarity, but for them, it wouldn't be an option to join any of these actions because they sometimes it's personal worries that they cannot deal with the violence or the aggression, or sometimes it's a matter of principle, not to annoy anyone, but to work in different ways. So we have, that's already a little bit in a bubble, but in a little bit wider bubble. At home, we had, because we have such a lack of priests, we have many priests from other countries coming in, and a woman of my hometown founded an order in India. And now the Indian sisters are coming back to our hometown and bring along priests as well. Kind of re-mission, I think. They now come to take care of us. And he was very explicit, and he was talking into our conscience a lot and saying, well, you live on a quite high level here up in the north. Maybe you could lower your, how do you say it, Ansprüche? People have quite high expectations what their life should be like, what they're entitled to. And he was saying, maybe you could do with a little bit less, coming from India. I've seen different life circumstances, and I thought that's very good because he did it. I come from a very conservative, small village, which Social Democrats never had a chance to be elected there. So it's really Christian conservative background. So for him, I thought it's courageous. So he is very in solidarity with it. Within my family and friends circles, there is not a lot of understanding. They find it too radical. They find this form of civil disobedience too radical. And I have to say, I don't have enough contact. I'm here for half a year now. And I join a Catholic parish here nearby, but so far only for Sunday services. I didn't talk to them really. So that would be the next step, maybe, to make contact, to stay at the parish, to drink coffee and try to talk with people about the whole issue. No, I haven't been really outside the bubble. No.
I was wondering if you would tell me too a little bit about when you helped occupy a village to prevent the coal mine from happening, if you'd be willing.
Yeah. That was a start for me when I thought, okay, now it's a time for civil disobedience. And I think for many people. So Lützerath was the last village they wanted to take down, to destroy, for getting the coal beneath it. And scientists say we don't really need it. We have enough coal. But it's a matter of political principle. And because it has become the center of the climate activist movement, they have built lots of beautiful tree houses, and they have kind of envisioned a different world. Like we always say, that a different world is possible. And they have come up with basic democratic structures, they take decisions in a different basic democratic way. Of course, they cook all vegan, or they cooked all vegan, so they were trying to grow their own greens on the acres nearby. The one farmer, the only one who resisted selling his property to the company, to the energy company, he allowed the activists to come because it was quite extensive, and to live there. And he wasn't an activist at all, but he loved his soil. It was connected to his ancestors. And for that reason, he wanted he felt like he's uprooted from his place, and it's one of the most fertile soils in Europe. So, in times where we really need it, where the soil is already so polluted, and then to destroy the soil, which has been built up for centuries. If you take it some other place, it won't have not nearly the same quality as it had when you leave it in it. So that was the second thing that we felt very wrong. That's so wrong to destroy it. We don't need the coal, but we do need the fertile soil. And then this huge gap where they want to fill in water for water skiing and whatever. And for me, it was also a shocking moment when we had a visit. I was working for an anti-capitalist foundation, and it gives prizes, a Blue Planet Prize and a Dead Planet Prize for people who are doing something very well for the environment or the opposite. And that's the main thing. And the Blue Prize winner was Phyllis Omido from Kenya, who is an environmental activist over there. And she had many attacks on her life, but she fought for it very strongly, and is very inspiring, and now trains other environmentalists. So she came over, and we took her to that place. And she was speechless. She said, "I cannot believe this. This is happening here in Europe. If that happened in my home country, where corruption is much more prevalent, I wouldn't be surprised. But this here?" She was and she said, "I thought you would be exemplary. I could go home and say, look what they are doing," because Germany sometimes likes to pride itself of being very much at the forefront of environmental innovation. And she said, "No, I cannot do it." It was a total disillusionment for her. She said, "Well, you here are defending also our rights. So your fight is our fight as well. And we support you in your fight here." So it was a very international movement. We had many Colombian activists, anti-coal activists being engaged. So it was like a new society. It felt like a new society that was. And I think, or not only other things too, they wanted to destroy that utopian, the idea of a new society. That was also at least one of their ideas behind destroying the place. I went a year before that. There's a group called Leave the Churches in the Villages, when they were taking down one church after the other, when they were destroying all the other villages already. And we were always fighting for those, the group was fighting for those churches to remain there. And when they were all destroyed, we were doing services, masses, near the coal mine, just in front of it. And there's a little chapel which was discovered very late, which is owned by the church. And then we appealed to the bishop and said, "Please don't sell it, because it's a very small place, but if you don't sell it, they cannot destroy the place." But of course, he sold it. And we said, well, when the day of destruction comes, we will occupy this little, it was only a small fence, hardly recognizable, but we will be there. We won't chain ourselves to it, but we will blockade it with our bodies. Like many other people did. We were hundreds of people saying we will defend the place with our bodies. And we were thinking that could take days or weeks because they were preparing for it for a long time. But then they called up police from all over Germany, from all 16 federal states. Police was coming. It was massive, massive. I've never, all you could see were police cars. And it was just astonishing. And for me, it felt, that was when I said, no, this is wrong. This is really totally wrong. And then it was quite violent, not with us again. I was with the church group. And most of our members are quite old. They're pensioners, so they are also very careful with older people. So I was always lucky to be in groups where they are very careful. But in other parts, it was a little bit violent. And the last night, when we knew probably it's going to happen the next morning, we were staying in the chapel, a few of us, and then singing and waiting for the police. And then they came by, and they were, for a long time, they were standing in front of us, a couple of hours. We didn't know when exactly they would take us. And then, one by one, they carried us away, or took us away, And that was, and I think the next day they destroyed the chapel. It was it was massive. It was a kind of massive destruction, really strong, and that, but in turn motivated many people and also me to say, okay, now it's a time to give a strong response to that kind of aggression that we felt.
Great. Thanks for sharing all that. Is there anything else you would want to say about any of it, or about your Christian calling in relation to climate activism or anything?
Well, I just feel I'm very motivated, by Dorothy Day, who fought, for women's votes. She needed to do this also with acts of civil disobedience by going to prison, and the suffragettes had to do it. And I think history has shown that sometimes it takes these measures, and I hope to that we will achieve some kind of response, of political response with it. Trying to keep the hope alive with it. And I'm very encouraged by and I think I can do this. What gives me strength is the people we are living with, because I'm seeing what they have been through with their whole, the difficult living situation in their home countries, then their flight, which was very dangerous, being pushed back in different countries, living under peril conditions, being exploited job-wise, and never giving up hope under really heavy circumstances, and always feeling in solidarity with their families. And now they have made it here, and now they take responsibility for their families at home. And for me, I feel that gives me a lot of courage and strength to do what I do now, because I think that is very little, because I'm very privileged in my whole, I think it's our duty. We are born in a privileged situation. We can do this, and we should. We are called to it, I think, our obligation in our situation, for the solidarity with humanity. We are put in this position. I think it's our calling.
That wraps up another episode of Coffee with Catholic Workers. If you'd like to reach out to us with comments, suggestions, clarification of thought, you can email us at coffeewithcatholicworkers@gmail.com. We'd like to thank our Catholic worker audio engineer Chris, as well as David Hayes for our music, and Becky McIntyre for our graphic. Thanks for joining us again for some clarification of thought. We hope today's conversation has been enlightening, and maybe even that you're encouraged to go out and help build a world where it's easier to be good.